Welcome all. This is our fifth lecture of Module 2 in Traffic Engineering. In the previous lectures, we discussed about spot speed studies and speed and delay studies. This lecture we'll be discussing more about origin and destination studies, or generally abbreviated as OD studies. Before we get into details of OD studies, let's have some understanding on transportation planning process. We all do planning in our life. Yes, we do have our goals and we do plan our activities to achieve the desired goal. In transportation, the desired goal is to improve the transportation system performance, and we can have various strategies towards that. We can think of increasing the road network, adding more roads, and improve the transit services. Maybe think of adding more buses or more metros, or increase the bus routes and metro lines. We can even think of introducing policies and pricing programs. So there are strategies available, and we should be well aware of each of these strategies and its implication. So the crux of the transportation planning process is to match the supply with the travel demand. So when we say travel demand, it's the need of that facility. So how many people or vehicles would likely to use that facility in future? That talks about the demand. And what is about in the supply part, like what is the available facility, say how many kilometers of roads are available, or what is the present transportation transit service. That talks about the supply. Match the supply with the demand. So if we know those kinds of future demand, we can think about deriving or determining the strategies to accommodate these kinds of future needs. So this is whole about the transportation planning process. To do that, we should have clear understanding about what is the existing supply, transportation supply, the existing road network, the transit services or traffic volume, or even the pattern, how people are moving in a city or in an area. So these informations are required, and also we need to predict what is the demand going to be in future. Say for example, point A to B, right now there are 20 trips, and what will happen in future? This 20 trips may go to 200 trips or 2000 trips. There are a number of factors going to affect this, and based on that, this has to be predicted. Alright, so this is what we do in a transportation planning process. We can express this travel demand in various ways. One can express the future travel demand in terms of future number of trips, or how much is the traffic volume is expected to grow, or the number of vehicle trips, the person kilometer travel. So various ways are there to express the travel demand. Now, how do we derive this demand? We generally predict the demand using modeling. So modeling techniques are available in planning process, which helps to estimate the future travel demand. The point here to emphasize that we need a lot of data to do such kind of modeling exercise. In general, one requires the data on travel pattern. We can think of doing the travel surveys. We need information about the land use data. For example, let's consider two areas. Let's take it as A, B. Consider these as the two areas in which trips are happening. Alright, so I need to know about how A is going to change. Right now, what is the land use about at A and at B, and in future how the land use is going to change. So we need to know about the existing land use. We need to predict the land use because it always have influence on the trip. In future, there may be, because of the attractions at A, there are more trips may generate from B to A. So it all affects the future travel prediction. So we need to know about the land use, the travel pattern, how people are traveling, from how many people from A to B is moving, and what kind of vehicles they are using. Are they using private transport or public transport? Which route, if there are different ways to connect into A to B, which routes they are likely to use, or which what time of the day they are using it. So all these informations are required. We also required information regarding existing transportation network and even on the socio-economic data. Alright, so now let's see how OD surveys are helpful towards this process. OD studies are helpful for us to understand the pattern of trips in an area. So the movement of people or goods in an area. So let's first define what is meant by a trip. If I ask you to synthesize your travel activities in a day, assume you are a working person. You started from home and went to office. So this is called as a defined as a trip, one way person movement. Probably you would have used a particular mode, say either a car or by bus or metro, and it has two trip ends, right? You started at one point, you ended at one point. So the starting point is generally defined as origin and the end point is destination, abbreviated as O and D. All right, so this is what is defined as a trip. So if you are looking more carefully, you can understand that from work you headed out to a shop, and from there to a dining place, and then from there back to home. That means you have made 1, 2, 3, 4 trips. Now, each of this trip has a different purpose. First one is a work-related trip, whereas the third one, if you look here, it's more of recreational, right? So generally we define transportation demand as a derived demand because we make trips not for the reason for the trips, because there is some other reasons, and to fulfill that reason a trip is made. So it's always considered as a derived demand. All right, so if we analyze this, this is the this is how we define a trip. Now let's expand it into your daily activities over here. All right, so let's look into it in a more elaborate manner. You are living at one particular zone. Say, what is the zone? So if you have one particular study area, we cannot capture the entire pattern in an area. All right, but we can consider small units in this area, and these small units are called as zone. So it will be easy to say, like, for example, zone 1, I can establish parameters over here, and I can say, like, this is another zone. So we can do the data analysis more ideal manner, and there is there are rules behind it. How do you divide your study area into zones and all? We are not getting into too many details of transportation planning here, but the idea is to understand how the pattern of trip. So my house is at 101 and I started at 7:15. I first went to drop my child at 7:30 to 7:35 a.m. here, which is existing at zone 105, and then to office, which is at 8 a.m. that is located at zone 50. Then from there, at around 12:30 going for lunch, which is at zone 50, and again back to work, then back to shopping, then again back to home at 6:30. So this is what is we generally define as the pattern, and there are many things influences this. Were these places, so as you see, like different zones, right? They are not in one similar same zone, so it's intra-zone activities are happening. So how people are moving, what time, what mode they are using, what is the nature of these trips, what are the reasons for it, and each of this decision would have come through many of the things, like your socioeconomic background. If you have a well-settled person, like assume that you have 3 or 4 cars, you may tend to use cars rather than buses. So there are many influencing patterns for trips also. So we should have a detailed information about origin, destination, yes, the land use of such zones, the household characteristics of trip making family, because that eventually helps you to take the decision which mode I should use, right? So the household characteristics, the socio-economic background, the time of the day these trips are made, trip purpose, and the mode of travel. So collecting these informations are possible by performing origin destination studies. The objectives or the application of OD studies would be determine the extent to which the present system is adequate and to plan new facilities. Alright, so that is the major objective of behind performing OD studies. Collect the information and assess the adequacy of the present facilities and plan for the new facilities. So when we say, like, plan, it can be like planning road network or other facilities, or plan the schedule of different modes of transportation. When we talk about different transit services, we can think about introducing an LRT mode or BRTS, anything can be think of it, or even the schedule of such modes. And the adequacy of existing routes, or use it planning new network of roads or mass transit facilities in cities. We can even think about there is a need for new terminals or new bypass for as per the traffic demands. Adequacy of the parking facilities can be checked and look for the future better one. So all these are possible by collecting OD studies. So we can have a check for the adequacy of the system and plan for new. And as discussed already in the planning process, it helps to develop the models. So what we mentioned here as trip generation or trip distribution are part of your modeling. I already explained, like there is 4-stage method. Models are quite popular in transportation planning to predict the future demand. So for that, these OD studies, the data would be as considered as an input towards such kind of a model process. So this is the application of performing such kind of OD studies. Now we are going to define how do we collect data. Yes, there are different methods in which these informations can be collected, or rather OD surveys can be performed. So the first one is home interview survey, the second one is roadside interview survey, third one is postcard questionnaire survey, fourth one is tag on vehicles, and fifth one is registration number plate survey. So let me tell here, each of this method is different in the way it context as well as the information it's going to collect. First method is home interview survey. As the name indicates, you are interviewing the household members. So ideally you visit the households and interview the household members. Now there are various practices involved here. Instead of visiting the house, one may collect the numbers and have a telephonic conversation, or you will prepare a questionnaire, carefully prepare a questionnaire with the kind of information we need to collect it, and drop it into the households and collect it later, or ask them to send it back with the address on it. So there are various practice in which one can execute this, but the popular is like either by performing it by an interview technique or by the questionnaire technique. Now what are the information we are going to collect through these questionnaires or by interviewing them? We need two major important information here. One is the household characteristics. Another one is the travel pattern. When we say household characteristics, we understood that the trip making will be influenced by many factors. For example, if you consider a house in which 4 members are there, but all these 4 members are elderly people. So their trip pattern is going to be completely different from a house in which there are 2 members, both are in the middle age. So we need to collect as many informations with respect to the household characteristics which has influence with respect to trip making. So we will collect both the demographic as well as socio-economic data. Number of people, their age, their gender, their working status, their economic background like monthly income or what kind of vehicles they are possessing, the travel pattern, the number of trips they are making, the origin, destination of each of this trip, which mode they are likely to use, the time of departure, arrival, all these informations will be collected. Alright, I can show you a questionnaire probably a little late after 2-3 slides. Now this is considered as most reliable type of service because we are getting a time to discuss with the households in person, so we can understand the behavior and factors affecting the travel and more accurately. So accurate data collection is possible through this one. One major challenge in these kind of surveys are with respect to its sample size. Assume that your study area there are like 1 lakh of households or above that, then covering each and every household may not be practical. But there are guidelines which says one can think of sampling size according to the population of the study area. So the one which I have shown here is the standards taken from Bureau of Public Roads. So it suggests if the population is less than 50,000, then one can think of selecting 1 in 5 households, or if it is above 1 lakh or so, 1 in 25 households or so. But again the question remains like how do you select that? So there are sampling techniques again, you can think of random sampling or non-random sampling techniques which allow us to pick the particular household which we later visits and perform such kind of surveys. Compared to other methods, home interview surveys has its own advantages yet few limitations too. Here, the interviewer visits the households, interviews the household members and collect data. So it's not complicated, it's relatively easy to administer. We do have flexibility in data collection. That means we can ask numerous questions to the household members, collect more informations regarding the household characteristics as well as the travel pattern details. And we can also ensure a higher response rate when we are doing such kind of personal interviews. So that is a good advantage when we compare other methods. The reliability of the answers, the user's response, can also be judged by looking into their attitude, the way the conversation is leading to. So to some extent, we can judge the reliability of the answers which the users have been provided. Also, the presence of interviewer at the spot makes the process easy. They can explain the intention behind it, and if there is any clarification or explanation required on certain questions, that can also be cleared at that point. Though the method is not complicated, it needs a skilled manpower. So getting adequate number of manpower with with skill set, that is most important. So that is a challenge here. The other limitation is like visiting the household, spending time there to collect the data, interviewing them. That takes a lot of time. So it is a time consuming process. And sometimes how do we select the sample size makes a lot of importance. We have seen design standards which help us to choose the sample size, but how are we selecting the sample size? If there is any bias on it, it will reflect on the survey data. So these are some of the challenges or kind of limitations of this method. This is a typical household interview form. So as you can see here, this is household interview form, and there is part 1 is asking household informations, and there are questions listed out. I'm just showing some glimpses of it. It's not the complete one. And part B here, there are personal information. Then part 2 can be gone for the vehicle information, say trip information. Alright, so we need to make sure that we will design the questionnaire carefully so that the questions will collect all the informations with respect to the household characteristics as well on the journey details which reflects or influence on the trip making. The second method is roadside interview survey. Again, it's an interview, but here we are interviewing drivers of the vehicles on roadsides. So the vehicles will be moving. The interviewers will be occupying at certain survey points. Let's discuss about how do we select the survey points. Assume that at selected survey points, the interviewers are there. They will stop the vehicles and they will be interviewing the drivers of vehicle and collect the information. Now you can even think about preparing a questionnaire and giving the questionnaire to the drivers and collect it later. We can be asked about data on their trip information, like what kind of trips they are making, origin, destination, and the travel time, or the time of leaving origin, the expected time of reaching the destination. All those details more on the trip informations can be collected. How do we select these survey points? Generally, survey points are selected along the junction of the cordon line or screen lines with the routes. So let's discuss on that. Let's call the area of interest, or the area which we would like to collect the information, the area of interest, call it as the study area. Now, if we draw an imaginary line as the boundary of this study area, that is what is called as cordon line. So in this case, assume that this is my area of interest and I am drawing an imaginary line. So this shows as the boundary of my study area. This is what is called as a cordon line. So here more details or more informations would be collected inside this area compared to the external. Now inside the study area, if I am able to divide it through some of the lines, that is what is called as screen lines. It can be the imaginary lines, as you can see, like along physical or natural barriers like rivers or railways. These are something called as the screen lines. So whenever the road meets such kind of screen lines or cordon lines, that points can be selected for the selected as the survey points, and you can execute the survey over there. So that's how generally we will select the survey point. Now, if we compare this method with others, we can see like it's an economic method. not the kind of intensive program when we discussed about the home interview survey. So it is economic, and it also yields accurate and reliable data because we are interviewing them. But the only disadvantage is that if you are thinking about interviewing, here we are stopping the vehicle and then interviewing the drivers. So there may be a delay which caused to the vehicles. So that is one of the major disadvantage that is quite happens with respect to these kind of methods. But if there is a questionnaire way of conducting it, passing the questionnaire to them, asking them to fill it and send it back, that can solve it. But again, the reliability of the data would be a concern over there. This is a sample sheet of a roadside interview form, so you can see the details. Vehicle type, number of occupants, last stop, next stop, the land use, trip purpose, vehicle type, all those informations can be collected. The third method is postcard questionnaire survey. This is actually an extended version of roadside interview survey. In roadside interview survey, we would be stopping the drivers of the vehicle at selected survey points and interviews them to collect the data. And we could see that this causes considerable delay to the drivers. To avoid this delay, instead of interviewing them at the survey points, we can hand over the prepared set of questionnaires to them and ask them to return back. You can make it as a paid questionnaire in which the address is stated so they can return it back, return by post. Alright, so such method is called as postcard questionnaire survey. So this method has the advantage that it's not causing the delay which was caused in the case of roadside interview. So here it is possible to collect good amount of information. It is cheap and simple compared to the other methods, but it has a major drawback regarding the reliability of the data, because they may be, we don't know what kind of information they are going to fill on it because we are not interviewing them, and we need to trust the data. So the reliability of data is always a challenge when we are adopting postcard questionnaire survey. The fourth method is registration number plate survey. So as the name indicates, here we are matching the registration number plate of vehicles. We are not interfering with the traffic. We are not causing any delay to the traffic. What we are doing is that the observers will be placed at certain selected survey points, and we will ask them to note down the registration number plates of vehicle when they are arriving or leaving at that particular point. So certain observations will be made. At the end of the day, when you go back to your office, you can match the registration number plate and identify the vehicle entry point and exit point in the study area. So in that way, it helps you to tell the path of the vehicle with respect to 2 points. But please note down that here we are not going to get the complete information on the travel path. No information regarding its origin, destination, not even on the purpose of the trip. All we get is the path of the vehicle with respect to 2 points in the study area. That is something we will be able to identify it. Alright, now with the help of, if you are not thinking about manpower to do such kind of works, we already discussed the kind of ITS application. So nowadays ANPR cameras are available. You can match it up using, the supported softwares too. The other method is tag on vehicles. This method is also quite similar to that of registration number plate method in terms of data collection. That means here, instead of matching the registration number plate, we will be identifying the vehicles with respect to a tag. Tag is an identification mark. So vehicles will be stopped when they are crossing, a particular cordon line, say like survey station. So vehicles will be stopped and a tag will be fixed on vehicles. Now this tag is an identification mark. So you can design it with the different colors or shapes according to, the survey stations, to identify different survey stations. Now when the vehicle is reaching the exit points survey station, you can stop the vehicle and collect this tag. So by matching the tags, you will come to know about, you can actually trace the path of the vehicle with respect to the 2 points. So that's what, it's stated. It is quite similar to the approach of registration number plate survey. And similar to registration number plate survey, we will be able to know about the number of vehicles moving, or rather the path between two points of that vehicle, but a complete information regarding the journey is not possible, like where is the origin, destination, or even the purpose of journey, because we are not interviewing them. So there is no interference with respect to the traffic here, because just for a moment to stop the vehicle to fix the tag. So this is what is tag on vehicle. So these are quite limitations of these methods also. Now let us see how do we represent the data. There are two forms of representing the data. One is more like a tabular column, like with rows and columns, looks like a matrix, or which is commonly known as OD matrix, origin destination matrix. The other form is more of a graphical representation, which we call it as desired line chart. Let's now look into the data representation through OD matrix. When we define OD matrix, it's defined as an array of cells in two-dimensional way. So where we have rows and columns, say for example, let's look into this OD matrix. You can see here there are rows, there are columns. So I can see here rows A, B, C, D, E, 5. And there are 5 columns A, B, C, D, E. So this is a matrix of 5 cross 5. This is the order of the matrix, right? Such a square matrix. So this is what is called as defined as an OD matrix. Travel patterns are arranged in cells or more like of a trip matrix form. Now let's see like how are we representing this data. For that, let me just show you the spatial interaction in a study area. So just to have a quick summary here, we said the area of interest, let's call it as the study area. We cannot collect the data on a study area or for an analysis purpose. We will split it into smaller units, which is more of homogeneous in nature, which are called as zones. So I'm going to show the different zones. Say for example, there are 5 zones here: A, B, C, D and E. Alright. Now, when I analyzed or studied or collected travel pattern in this study area, I could see that there are movements from trips making from A to B, trips making from A to C. Sorry, this was A to B supposed to be. A to B, A to C, A to D, A to E and back from B to E. Like zone to zone movements I observed. And these spatial interactions are expressed here. So A to B, there are no trips, sorry. So A to C here is represented as 50. And B to C there are trips, 60 trips. B to E 30, E to C 90 and so. For example, if you take D to E, there are trips happening from D to E 20 and E to D back 10 trips. So now you will understand, like we already defined what is a trip and here it shows the number of trips. Now this information we are going to represent in terms of a matrix. So how do we do it? So how many zones you have? 5 zones, right? So 5 zones in vertical axis, 5 zones in the horizontal axis. This vertical axis are called as origin zones and the horizontal axis are considered as the destination zones. That's how it's OD matrix, origin destination. So what is meant by that? When I say AA, the first cell represents the trips happen from origin A to destination A, like within the zone itself. In this case, there are no trips happening within the zone. That's why it has been taken as 0. Now, what is the second cell? Second cell has origin A and destination B. Alright, so that is trips from A to B. In this case, there are no trips from A to B. Let's take the third cell, which connects two trip ends A and C. As I said, vertical axis is origin and horizontal is destination. So A to C, how many trips are there? And it has been clearly stated 50. So this is 50 trips. I hope that's clear. Now let's take another example like D to E and E to D. So when we say D to E, I have to look into the vertical axis D and C, E. So this is the cell which represents D to E 20 trips. Alright. And E to D back 10 trips. So that means E is the origin here and D is the destination, which is here stated as 10. Alright. So this is how the trip information, the trip pattern. So when we say trip pattern here, how many trips are happen from one zone to another zone in your study area between the zone. These trip numbers would be represented as number of trips in each of the cell connecting its respective origin and destination. Such a form is called as OD matrix. Alright, now if you just look around it, if we add all the trips, we will come to know in that study area how many trips are made, right? And I will also come to know like A. From A, if I look at, let me just erase everything. Yeah. So if we see from A, there are no trips to A, there is no trip within A, 0 trips. A to B, 0. Again, A to C, 50 trips. A to D, A to E. That means there are no other trips. From A, only 50 trips are happened. But if you look from B, there are trips to C, there are trips to E. 60 trips to C, 30 trips to E. 60 plus 30, that means 90 trips have been made from B. The trips starting from B, emanating from B. That means if you add up all the cells row wise here, you will get how many number of trips that are started from each of the origin. Alright. The similar way, if you take the column summation, you will come to know how many trips are actually entered at A or attracted to that. For example, here A represents as my destination. And I can see the sum is 20 here. So you can look at the spatial interaction and see that only trips as destination trips is D to E. There are 20 trips. No other zones have trips which are ending at A. Alright. So the row wise summation will give you an information about number of trips starting from A. The column wise summation will give you the number of trips which are attracted towards that zone. So this is how we will read the OD matrix, or rather arrange the trip pattern using OD matrix. The other popular way of representing trip pattern data is through Desire line chart. So here the zones will be represented by the zone centroid. So we have taken A, B, C, D as the example. So let's consider here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you can see the points here. These are the zone centroid. Alright. Now a pair of zones would be connected by means of a straight line. So they will connect the centroid of a pair. The trips would be indicated by the lines. These are called as a Desire line. Now, they will be drawn to a suitable scale to represent the actual volume of trips. See, in OD matrix, we had numbers. Here, we are not showing the numbers, but instead, we will be drawing these lines as numbers with respect to the scale. For example, if you look here, you can see the more and more thickness will come when the numbers are high, right? So if we take this particular, which is zone centroid 5 to 8, say for example there are trips above 10,000, so you can see that the thickness of the line is more. Whereas if you just take other cases, other zone centroid, you can see like a thickness is not that much. It's a thin lines. That means it may be corresponding to a less trip numbers. So this is what is actually meant by a Desire line chart. Alright, so it is the trips between any pair of zones are represented by straight lines which connects the centroid of the two zones, and this bandwidth is drawn to the suitable scale to represent the actual volume of trips. So this is how the other form of representation. With this, we'll conclude the session. So we heard about the transportation planning process, the need of prediction of travel demand, and how OD surveys are helpful towards the data collection to predict the future travel demand, the objectives and applications of OD studies, various data collection processes, and data representation through OD matrix and Desire line chart. These are the major key points discussed in this session. Thank you.